Hello. This video is more or less a tribute to you wonderful subscribers and other warriors for the truth who have on so many occasions winkled things out for me when I've said I couldn't find anything. So first of all, I'll say that I'm referring back to a disappearing, hysterically inaccurate scientific article. And by hysterically, I mean it in both senses. The article is hysterical and it's hysterically funny what transpired afterwards, but we'll get to that in a minute. It's a scientific article which almost completely and suspiciously disappeared from the internet. They say the internet is forever, and this disappeared. It was terribly difficult to find, but I bear glad tidings, it has been found. Not without effort, by the way, but a very determined watcher of that last video did track it down, and I am very grateful for that. So before carrying on, I'll tell you I'm Granniopteryx. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. I'm also on Twitter and Gab, where I let you know when I've uploaded a new video. All the links are in the description. Also the links to donation sites if you wish to use them, one of them or all of them. But the best thing you can do for this video is to click like and to share it and to subscribe to my channel. And if you're on YouTube, check you're still subscribed. Now, I got comments about my reporting of a tweet from Greta Thunberg in which she said, a top climate scientist is warning that climate change will wipe out all of humanity unless we stop using fossil fuels over the next 5 years. And I made a quip about having got past the world's end because she had written that in June 2018. It's nearly the end of June 2023, 5 years up, you know. And that was funny. But some of you pointed out that she wasn't exactly saying the world would end in 5 years' time, and you were quite right. But actually, I didn't regard, and I realised that too, but I didn't regard myself as being dishonest because what I'd done was I'd telescoped a couple of things, simply for time and space and YouTube concentration and all the rest of it. Look, I know she isn't saying that the world would end in 5 years, but she was saying is that 5 years is all we have to stop a runaway climate catastrophe. Yeah, but first of all, the message taken from her tweet was being widely used by those with an agenda as the end of the world scenario. And secondly, she was quoting an authority or somebody who shouldn't be an authority, but who was given the status of an authority, and he was saying just that. I couldn't get a complete report of what Professor Anderson said, but I did know enough about it at the time to know that's what he was saying. And it was definitely a doomsday scenario and very quick. And what he was also saying was that we have to have like a sort of military style takeover to force people, no doubt at gunpoint, not to do what he said we were doing that was going to destroy the planet, or destroy it for us anyway. You know, it was really radical, revolutionary and completely murderous stuff, really. Anyway, here it is, reproduced in an online magazine called GripPost, subheader, where is it? Yeah, real news for the working class. I suppose that the GripPost has sort of like evocations of GitHub, but it's also one of those obvious upper class memes that imagines that the working classes live gritty lives or something. It's certain from the magazine itself, from what I've seen, that the working class live shitty lives, because the whole magazine is a litany of one miserable instance of oppression and exploitation and injustice after another. Look, in a population of, what do you have in America? 332 million people. You don't have to do much. It's very lazy finding examples of injustice. I mean, you'd find a lot to sheer statistics sheer numbers. You're going to find examples of injustice fairly easily, aren't you? And in most cases, you don't have to work too hard to find them, or to find examples of total idiocy. And this is one of them. So get out your popcorn, folks. I'm going to show you a veritable Wiley Coyote show of overreaching idiocy. And we start with this photograph, which is a sort of roadrunner type of look to it, isn't it? And of course it shows what looks like, it could be, a receding shoreline and a lot of dry land, a dry riverbed or something in front of it. It doesn't actually tell you whether that's a seasonal dry riverbed or a cyclical dry riverbed, or a reservoir that's being drained for some reason, that sort of thing. No, it's just that's the frightening image. And let's see what Thunberg was quoting, should we? So first of all, this is by somebody called Scott Alden. And who is Scott Alden? He's a freelance contributor covering national politics, education and environmental issues. He's a proud Toledo University graduate and lives in the suburbs of Detroit, an area of America which is so run down and deserted it might as well be an archaeological site, and that's because the industry deserted it. The industry that Scott Alden is saying is going to be bad for humanity. I'd say there's nothing worse for humanity than what's happened. Well, there is, but very few things than what's happened to Detroit. Or is that Detroit? I don't know. Anyway, I don't know what his qualifications are, but he does come out with some stuff as if he was qualified to talk about things like this. So he says here, a top climate scientist is warning that climate change will wipe out all of humanity unless we stop using fossil fuels in 5 years. In a recent speech at the University of Chicago, James Anderson, a professor of atmospheric chemistry at Harvard University, so probably a bright chap, but not bright enough by the looks of things, sort of Wiley Coyote type of brightness, as I said, warned that climate change is drastically pushing Earth back to the Eocene epoch from 33 million BCE. I like the way he says here, BCE. Yeah, I mean, you do realise it used to be BC. Now they call it CE, the Christian era. From the time Jesus was born, give or take a few years, to now. That's 2023 years of Christian calendar. But what he is saying is from 33 million years ago, not BC, before the Christian era, because what he is actually saying here is 33 million, and then if we're going up to the time Jesus was born, from then to now, add an extra 2023 years. That is an example of idiocy and ignorance, really. What he said was the Eocene epoch 33 million years ago, but he thought that looked posher, I assume. Okay, when there was no ice on either pole. Yeah, it was tropical, both poles. Great. And 33 million years ago, there weren't any human beings around either, building coal-fired power stations in China or whatever. So why did it get so warm? Well, probably it was something to do with the sun, had nothing to do with people, whatever. Anderson says current pollution levels have already catastrophically depleted atmospheric ozone levels. No, they haven't. As a matter of fact, the ozone levels were going up 2014 to 2015, and then they went down a bit 2015 to 2018, and that's because things go up and down in the atmosphere. And Anderson knew that. And yet in 2018, he was basically quoting the figures from 2015 to 2018 because that showed a decline. That's really dishonest, and that could not have been a mistake. Let's see what the next thing is. Yeah, Anderson's assessment of humanity's timeline for action is likely accurate. Now, this is what this guy, this writer, says. I've forgotten his name now, but it's not important. It really isn't important anyway. And I'd like to know what his qualifications are to say that this assessment is accurate, because it's just an assertion so far. There's no figures backing it up. Given that his diagnosis and discovery of Antarctica's ozone holes led to the Montreal Protocol of 1987. So it looks like he was one of the people who found the ozone hole. Great, good for Professor Anderson. And then it looks like he just got carried away. So what this writer, this journalist, what this journalist is saying is that it's probably accurate because he found the ozone hole in the first place. Well, yeah, Columbus found the Americas. He thought he'd gone round the world. That didn't make him accurate either. Columbus clung to that idea that he had found a way around the globe until his dying day. He refused to believe any evidence to the contrary, that he'd actually found a new continent. Now, you'd imagine that if somebody found a new continent, they'd be pretty proud of that. No, not a bit of it, because it's very often the case that when people find a great discovery, then they stick to the original idea. It's a real problem trying to get them to shift when new evidence comes up. Anyway, that's probably rather beside the point. Let's get on with it. So this is the Wiley Coyote moment. Recovery is all but impossible, he argued, without a World War II style transformation of industry, an acceleration of the effort to halt carbon pollution and remove it from the atmosphere, and a new effort to reflect sunlight away from the Earth's poles. So what he's saying is that the entire world's resources have to be put into putting mirrors on the South Pole. And it's not a terrible idea, by the way, but turning over the whole world's economy to that's what it looks like, and halting carbon pollution and removing it from the atmosphere, when honestly many scientists have said carbon is not a pollutant and it's good for plants. We've never had it so good as far as the jungles are concerned. This has this has to be done, Anderson added, within the next 5 years. So we've missed that opportunity. And then he comes up with this direct quote: "The chance that there will be any permanent ice left in the Arctic after 2022 is essentially zero." Right, let's get on to the next one. As GripPost reported in July 2017, more than half of all carbon emissions can be traced back. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So I noted this, and not because it's anything to do with Anderson, but it's because it's to do with GripPost. They report. Let's just find the culprit, should we? GripPost reported in July 2017, more than half of all carbon emissions between 1988 and 2016 can be traced back to just 25 fossil fuel giants around the world. 10 of those 25 are American companies. 10 of those 25. So 15 of them are not. Meaning the onus is largely on the United States. No, because it depends on how much carbon they are emitting. They may be among the biggest. They may be among the biggest, but the others might be belching out far more. Let's have a look. So he first names major polluters like ConocoPhillips, ExxonMobil, Chevron and Marathon Oil. And then the also rans. Other offenders include Chinese companies extracting and burning coal and Russian oil conglomerates like Rosneft, Gazprom and Lukoil. Now, China. You just take a look at Chinese cities and see what sort of pollution they have to know that they are the major sinners here. And he doesn't even mention India, which is no slouch either. Right, do I have another one? And the coup de grace. The bad news for humanity is that as long as Donald Trump is President of the United States, swift action to combat climate change seems unlikely prior to 2020, given that Trump pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords and refuses to even acknowledge the threat of climate change despite warnings from US government agencies. like the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Defence. I'm not going into those. I know the Department of Homeland Security is certainly suspect in its findings in many other situations. But what Trump pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords for was not because he didn't acknowledge the threat of climate change. He thought that the Paris Climate Accords were a con, that they were going to throw more onus on all of this to America, just like this author did, than to other countries which are just as bad or even worse. And that's why Trump was out of it. And he was right. And I, as you know, I'm a sort of a person who's very much involved with the countryside and with animals and all the rest of it. And he's right. This is a bunch of townies who don't really understand what's going on. Now, I thought you might be interested in this as a finisher. It's this one from the Smithsonian. So we have another idea about hysteria here. Humans have shifted the Earth's axis by pumping lots of groundwater. Removing water from the ground has led to sea level rise and caused Earth's axis to shift by about 2.6 feet between 1993 and 2010. Well, I am a bit suspicious of this. 1993 was perhaps when they started measuring this, not this catastrophic tilt that they're implying within 7 years. The Earth suddenly lurched 2.6 feet on its axis. For decades, humans have been pumping so much water out of the ground that it's caused the Earth's axis of rotation to shift. As the Earth spins, its rotational poles naturally move a bit. Well, they naturally move anyway. Anything from ocean currents, da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so in the 20th century, Earth's axis shifted about 4 inches a year, according to NASA. But global warming isn't the only human-caused factor. We still don't know whether it is a human-caused factor. But they're acting as if it is. And this is the Smithsonian. The new study estimates that between 1993 and 2010, the pumping of groundwater and the resulting sea level rise caused the poles to drift by about 2.6 feet. Now, I have an answer to that. You see, they're saying that we're shifting the water from one place to another and that's causing the Earth to tilt. So here's my answer. What you have to do is urinate in the same place you drink. Exactly the same place. And that means that the water stays exactly where it is. And problem solved. That's what the Smithsonian should be doing. You don't think that's entirely serious? Oh well, never mind. That's all, folks.